Hi, Dana. My name is Neil. I'm with Dorkaholics, where we believe that there's a dork in everyone. It's our job to bring that dork out into the world.
I agree.
I mean, just to kind of break the ice, what made you a dork growing up?
Oh, where do we start? First of all, I was first generation of Dominican that was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio, which many people would never guess. And I just was awkward. I was awkward and I couldn't figure out this right here, what I got going on today. I didn't know this was in me. So while everybody was trying to like straighten and feather their hair, I just was kind of an odd mix of trying to figure it out. And then there wasn't a lot of representation of my culture in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I was always just a little awkward and dorky.
I mean, you figured it out. You're Diana Maria Riva.
I figured it out. I'm good.
So you're guest starring in Lopez versus Lopez in the episode Lopez versus Swap Meet, but really it's Lopez versus Olga.
Yeah. You ever go to that swamp meet and you come out feeling a little battered and abused because you've got some vendors there that look innocent enough, and then you leave with 10 times more the things that you expected to buy and wondering what just happened? That's Olga. And it was a great role to dive into. And then there's a wonderful little underlying current there with the fact that Olga and George have a history.
Hmm. I mean, I know you and the real life George also have history. You guys both were in St. George together.
Yes. I've been lucky to call George hermano and friend for a long time. And he had a series in 2014 called St. George, and I had a great series regular role on that. That was a lot of fun.
Mhm. I mean, any fun stories or hopefully stories at the swap meet that you base this experience off of? Maybe not as the person selling the swap meet, but maybe as a buyer, someone that walked home with 10 things.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like I'm one of the worst shoppers at a swap meet, so I was playing the character that I've always wanted to be, and what I go in there prepared to be when I go to a swap meet myself, and I lose every time. But I think that one of the best parts of this is that she's just unsuspecting, and she brings uh, men to their knees. Basically, they say you go to the swamp meet to get hard, and she's that whip cracking kind of person. And with George, working with George and having a past with working with George, I knew that I needed to be ready because George will just throw things at you right there while cameras are rolling, and you got to be ready. And you don't want to fall into it, because then if you start laughing or whatnot, it ruins the take, and you want to save it because he's so brilliant with those things. So there are a lot of those moments, and luckily I was able to hold my ground.
Mhm. I mean, you can tell me how many takes did it take? Because I'm sure I would crack up being on scene at the swap meet with George Lopez.
Yeah, no,
Being wearing the
there's a
shirt.
couple of surprises when he comes to visit the swap meet that the audience will you'll lose it. It's great. And some of the things that we'll do when we're filming stuff like that is that if there's a big reveal, I will say, or actors will say, like, I don't want to see it until cameras are rolling and you come and reveal. That way, you got to dig deep, but you also, the reaction is authentic as possible. So there were a lot of those, and luckily we did do some pre-filming in case I wasn't able to pull it off or we weren't able to pull it off. But this is the best thing about George. We shot it multiple times and it was different every time, and we had the pick of the litter when it came to what was in the final edit. But it's always another workshop in comedy when you work with people like George Lopez.
I noticed in the background you have Latinas um
This
yeah,
thing.
Latinas acting up. Uh, what's the story there?
Well, first of all, I just this is the dorky part of me, but whenever we mention Latinas acting up, it's always Latinas acting up. Pow, 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 pow. You got to put in the right sound effects. And that is a platform that came out of the strike this past summer. The original concept was something that I created as a way to gather a group to picket and hold the line. So I knew that if I got a group of my Latina actresses, we could meet every week. I'll give us a little name, Latinas acting up, put the chancla on the end of the SAG symbol, and some t-shirts and show up. But I had reached out to a Latina actress, Lisa Vidal, you know her well, and I asked her to help me organize this. And together, she and I really nurtured this into this real platform of Latinas in the industry of all sectors, hair, makeup, actresses, writers, directors, producers, because it instantly became a crowd, a huge crowd of these young Latinas in varying stages of their careers out here, really there for the fight. But we realized we needed it for something bigger and better, which was to move the needle of raising our visibility and representation in Hollywood, because we were being photographed and pictured in the head of all these articles. And at one point, it was a very bittersweet moment to see how many headlines we had made as Latinas acting up, and thought, my God, I wish this were indicative of how often we're cast in roles, or how many projects we have as Latinos in the industry, and it wasn't. And I thought, Lisa and I thought, if this is how much attention we get when we're this organized and this loud over a strike, imagine what it will be if our mission develops into raising that much noise and unity for moving the needle of representation. So that is who we are.
Thank you, Diana, for being there on the picket lines and standing up for representation for your community. On that note, I wanted to end this interview by asking, similarly, who should Dorkaholics and audiences keep an eye out for in the Latina community in upcoming season?
We have, and I mean, we have so many beautiful Latinas in the industry that are really just growing and finding their light, and deservedly so. We have a young Latina who has a film out called Stolen Valley. Her name is Brisa Covarrubias, and she is an indigenous, Mexican American Latina, and that is a young woman to be looking out for. She's got a lot of wonderful projects coming out. In particular, the Stolen Valley, which focuses on a story with the native land. Also, Aire Campos. Aire Campos is a beautiful up-and-comer in this industry. There's just, there are so many. And, this is the great thing about Latinas Acting Up. We promote each other's work. So on our Instagram site, Latinas Acting Up, we're constantly posting the works of these young actresses.
Thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Oh, thank you for having me.